Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from the Saint Louis Rapid Blitz tournament. It is the second day of the Rapids and it is Nepomniachtchi versus Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Jan had a fairly decent first day. He got 2 wins and 1 draw. Mamedyarov, on the other hand, he lost 2 games and got 1 draw, so he really would enjoy bouncing back, especially with the black pieces against Nepo, the potential future world champion. So it's a really wild game. It features the Catalan. You guys will like it, and there's a certain position where pretty much every move you make is winning, which is very odd as there are weird moves you can make. So you'll see what I mean by this. Now let's dive straight into it. Jan has the white pieces and he opens with d4. We have knight f6 by Shah, c4, e6, knight to f3, not allowing the Nimzo Indian, and now pawn to d5. Just transposing into the Queen's Gambit decline, we have g3. Nepo opts for the Catalan opening, and now bishop to b4 with check. We have bishop to d2, and now bishop back to e7. Bishop to g2, and both players castle. So castles, and now knight b to d7. Queen to c2, and now c6. So there were a couple of weird lines, but they just transposed into the normal Catalan, and this is something that's played very often. The difference is here, the top moves that people usually play are bishop f4, rook to d1, and just a nice b3. But Nepo goes for the immediate h4, and now it's not a new move, but it's only been played a handful of times. So let's see how Mamedyarov deals with this. We have pawn to b6, preparing bishop to a6, as the rook is still on f1, so you might have trouble defending this. Knight to c3 and bishop to a6, now also putting pressure on the c4 pawn. So here we have a trade, captures, and now just rook f to c1. And there is a game between Grigory Oparin and Ray Robson, also from St. Louis Summer A event that was played this year, that ended in a draw where queen to b8 was played. But here we have bishop back to b7 by Mamedyarov, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game. So you're probably wondering, this looks very timid. How can this game be in any way exciting? Well, that's what chess is all about. You know, few moves and everything just explodes. So here we have bishop to f4, and now it makes sense. Jan has a queen and a rook on the c file. Makes sense to go rook to c8. We have queen to b3, and now pawn to a6, preparing b5. So of course Nepo stops this, and now pawn to h6, taking away the g5 square from Nepo's pieces. We have e3, and now just knight to h5, going after the bishop here. This will mess up Nepo's pawn structure, but this is kind of exactly what Nepo wanted. So bishop to h3. Now if knight captures, you can simply play pawn captures, and you will have a firm grip on the e5 square. You will put the knight on e5, and you will have a very good position. If this knight can get somewhere to g4, maybe the queen gets into the attack, so it could be very difficult to defend this. So after bishop to h3, Mamedyarov goes rook to c4, prepares rook to b4 to kick away the queen, or if you attack the rook, then rook to b4, and now queen back to d1. Now you are threatening maybe some discoveries with the knight, as this knight might be hanging, but still black can always capture here, so it's not really an issue. Mamedyarov goes for it right away. Knight captures on e4, e captures on f4, e captures on f4, and now bishop to d6. And here just bishop to f1, kicking that rook away from such an active square. Rook to c7, and now bishop back to d7. And now you can already see that, for example, if let's say the bishop goes to c2, queen goes to d3, there will be a constant checkmating threat against the black king. So knight to f6, you definitely want this knight here, and not just to guard h7, but also to have keep an eye on the e4 square. Queen to e2, and now queen to a8, adding another, well, basically more pressure on the c4 square, so the knight at some point will land on e4. So knight to e5, and now just rook f to c8, nicely doubling up on the c file. f3, taking away the f4 square from the black knight, and now pawn to h5, stopping g4, as if white starts pushing those pawns, black will just get obliterated, because all of Mamedyarov's pieces are on the queen side. So here we have queen to e3. Queen to e3, a very nice move, as you'll see. You could also maybe just start with the doubling of the rooks, but Nepo has a very, very clear idea. So queen to e3, bishop to b4 now, kind of putting pressure on c3, but not really. Now that the queen is on e3, this is impossible. Just rook to c2. And now, of course, point is that it seems like you can win material here, but the problem is this bishop to h7 check. For those of you who are maybe new to chess, if you grab the pawn here, just captures, bishop to h7 check will pick up the rook here. So, for example, knight captures or king captures, queen captures on c3, and you're just up the exchange. You have a rook for a bishop. Of course, this will be completely winning for Jan. So here, after rook to c2, Mamedyarov should consider playing it, just quietly, just something like a5, improving the position. But question is, what happens if f5 is played? f5 is such a dangerous move that you kind of don't want to see it, but you kind of have to allow it. And here Mamedyarov plays g6, but this is what we call in chess basically seeing ghosts. He wanted to prevent f5, so he played g6, but by playing g6 he actually invites f5, as now it is much more potent. Not right away, but of course Nepo will first prepare it. So here we have rook 8 to c1. Just to give you an idea, as this is a rapid game, of course players only have 15 minutes on the clock, but just to give you an idea of how dangerous the position is, g4 here. And there now f5 is coming, and there's no defending this position. Whatever you play, let's say rook to f8, just f5. And how are you defending this? The queen now has access to g5 to h6. This is unstoppable. If e captures, you're just going to play g captures again. You're going to capture here. No move for Mamedyarov. If queen e8, doesn't really matter. Just f captures, pawn captures, rook to g2, and the black just gets obliterated here. So, okay, after g6, we have rook 8 to c1. Like I said, it's a rapid game. You can't really calculate all the pawn pushes, so might be very dangerous. But still, rook 8 to c1 does not, ruin in any way Nepo's chances of pushing g4 at some point. So, king to g7, and now comes bishop captures on g6. And this is a beautiful move. g4 also very much playable, but Nepo has a different idea. He plays a bishop captures on g6, f captures, and now queen to d3, just going after that g6 pawn. But the difference is in this variation that Mamedyarov has this very, very annoying defensive idea of knight to e4, and now Nepo will have to really find unique moves in order to win this position. So f captures on e4, now comes d captures on e4. This also will open up Mamedyarov's diagonal here. So queen to e3, keeping the pawn blocked, and now you have to, in order to continue playing this with black, you have to play bishop to d6. However, Mamedyarov makes what could be described as one of the worst moves maybe that was played this year in Rapid, or maybe in general, I don't know. But it's a move that after he plays it, it's such a normal looking move, and it's a move that, of course, everyone would want to play. That is bishop to d5. But now pretty much any move Nepo makes wins the game. So feel free to pause the video and try to find any move that wins the game. I mean, there are some that don't, but try to find at least one that does while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding either g4 or f5 or knight captures on g6, or those are the nice ones. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, Nepo played pawn to g4. But as it's such a rich position, I will show you why some of the other moves are winning. For example, knight captures on g6 is really just a wonderful variation. Point being that after king captures, you just play f5 check, and now the queen gets access to the g5 square. But even better, after e captures on f5, there's knight captures on d5. You're grabbing a knight and now threatening rook captures on c7, so black naturally will have to capture on c2, and now queen g5 check, king f7, queen captures with check, king to e8, queen to e6 check, king to d8, and now pretty much anything again wins. Queen to g8 check, you have to go to d7, and now a beautiful triple fork here. Knight to b6 check, king to c6, you're even going to capture on c2, king captures, and now rook captures or queen captures, depending on how you want to play it. Let's say rook captures, queen b7, and now a nice queen to d8 check, and your other moves. If queen to c7, you just capture with checkmate, and if king here, then you win the black queen, and then you checkmate the black king. So that's how you win with knight captures and g6. Also, another fun move is pawn to f5. and again, nothing to do. If G captures, then the queen gets access, and the queen and knight checkmate the black king. If E captures, then there's again knight captures on D5. That's why this bishop on D5 is such a terrible piece, as it always loses a piece for Mamedyarov. There's no move that he can make. You can't go for the knight because the rook is now hanging with check, and if you go for the rook, that you kind of have to do, let's say captures, not just knight captures on B4. Now you have two knights for the rook. Also, it's very unlikely that you will survive this. Queen G5 is coming. It's completely winning. But Nepo goes for the third option after bishop to D5, which is cool, as it shows that absolutely every move is winning. He plays G4, and there is no way to stop this. H captures on G4, and now rook to G2. This is a different approach, but also an unstoppable one. Just rook captures, there's no way to defend this. Rook to H7, now comes rook captures on G4. Also knight captures on G4 is possible, followed by F5 and queen to H6. But okay, rook captures on G4, rook to G8, now defends the G6 pawn, but now just king H2. Now the other rook will come to the G file as well. We have queen to C8, and now the final push, pawn to F5. And now, again, what do you play? If you play G captures, then you've pretty much opened up the entire position. Just captures, knight captures on D5 is game over. The rook is hanging. Also, if you capture the rook, then knight to F6 check wins the queen. You get checkmated. This is, of course, impossible. So what actually happened in the game was G captures on F5, but it went differently. But if E captures on F5, then knight captures on D5 immediately. That's basically what I wanted to show you. Point is, again, if rook captures on C1, it's just a beautiful forced checkmate. Knight F6 check. King G7, rook captures. Now the knight is defended and the rook is guarded. King to F8, queen to H6 check. This is just incredible. Knight to D5, back with check. King D8, now rook captures on G8 check, and that's it. You have to block with the bishop. It's the only move. And now queen or rook captures will be checkmate. So look at these knights. I mean, absolutely incredible, absolute monsters here. So point being, after F5, G captures on F5 was played. We have rook captures, and now not queen captures, but king captures on G8, and now queen to G5 with check. We have rook to G7, and now, only now, that rook blocked check, and Nepo's queen is hanging. Nepo plays knight captures on D5, and it was in this position on move 39 that Shakhriyar Mamedyarov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So that's why the bishop on D5 was such a terribly placed piece. I mean, it was it's been a while since we've seen a piece placed so terribly that I mean, you could literally play anything. Like you know, if you let your cat on the board and the cat, you know, move the piece, it would probably be winning. So again, the idea is the same. Your queen is hanging, and also the knights are just ready to start checking the black king. If you go for captures on C1, just queen to D8 check. It's a nice forced checkmate. King to H7, knight F6 check. Only move king H6. Now comes queen to H8 with check, and now you have to block, and this will be checkmate. And the other moves don't really help you. If you try and bring your queen to help out with the defense, again, just knight F6, and it's the same idea, maybe even faster. King H8, queen to H6 check, rook H7, and now queen captures on H7 will be checkmate. So yeah, after knight captures on D5, beautiful move, Mamedyarov resigns, and another beautiful, spectacular victory for Yan Nepomniachtchi, who I'm not sure about the standings, but I think he caught up to Alireza. I'm not sure how Alireza was doing, as Alireza also won 2 games yesterday, one also against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and one against Hikaru Nakamura. But we're going to cover more games, so we're going to check out the standings at some point. If you have a game that you like, use hashtag suggestion, and I will make sure to go through it. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The first game that we've covered from the Saint Louis Rapid tournament. After that, we have the Blitz. I would like to thank Chris Basil, Gregory Obala, Connor Kelly, John Merlino, and Damon Targaryen for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this wonderful event, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.